For the most part, it's a pretty pristine watershed. And I think that that pristine nature of it, the fact that there is so much habitat, makes it unique.
We are an isolated watershed. We are our only ecosystem. The Purgatoire watershed and the Purgatoire River, historically and culturally, continues to be used the way it's always been used.
You know, it's very interesting because the Purgatoire River is one of the few really intact rivers in Colorado, that it still is used for all its traditional uses. Nothing is imported or exported. It's just all a natural river system within our boundaries here.
This river is over 100 and some miles long and it starts at roughly at 12,000 feet elevation on the Sangre Crystal Range and then ends up down to Los Animas, where it joins the Arkansas about roughly 3,500 feet of elevation. So there's a 9,000 foot roughly variation within the ecosystems, the drop in the elevation of the river.
It's the largest tributary of the Arkansas, and yet it's isolated to a large degree. It is its own supply. There is no other supply in this area.
The upper Purgatoire River Basin stretches from national forest land in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains to Lake Trinidad and is used to capture and store water for both agricultural and municipal users. Public employees serve as caretakers of the watershed and oversee water storage and treatment for Trinidad and smaller communities downstream.
The city of Trinidad is in very good shape when it comes to water resources. Our water rights were established long ago. We have 4,200 acre-feet stored in North Lake. We have approximately 1,500 acre-feet stored in Monument Lake. We use approximately 3,000 acre-feet a year.
The middle section of the basin, from Lake Trinidad in the west to small towns east of the city of Trinidad, contains scores of small farms and ranches where irrigated agriculture relies on water from the Purgatoire River.
It's had its challenges, and the drought is a continual challenge. In this area here, we're kind of trying to farm in the upper Sonoran Desert ecologically.
Of the Arkansas tributaries, if you look at the runoff forecasts of the various tributaries every spring, the range of probabilities for the Purgatoire is highly variable, more so than a lot of other tributaries. It's kind of a feast or famine thing a lot of times. 2017, we had abundant reservoir storage supplies and river inflows. In 2018, it was very dry. We had virtually no snowpack and very, very little runoff.
Like most basins in Colorado, not all of the water has stayed on the farm. Some Purgatoire River water rights have been purchased by municipal water users to allow for future growth and development.
The Conservancy District is the hub of the Purgatoire River Basin, which is, again, roughly 20,000 acres. Between the city and the Colorado State Parks, there's roughly 2,000 acres of permanent dry-up out of the 20,000. So 10% of our lands is out of production. That is starting to be a significant amount. However, we do need municipality of water. So that converted to storage in Trinidad Lake for consumptive use, as we call that. We're here on Yoder Farm. When they first came in 2010, they had no idea about how to irrigate, but they learned quick and they realized that it's quite a bit more labor than what they even anticipated, and they purchased quite a bit of gated pipe, but it didn't take them long to realize that even this pipe, it's so much labor, and to stay competitive and sustain themselves, they need to get to a better technical practice of irrigation. And so they've installed, I think, 7 sprinklers so far, and they have plans to put a couple more in. So the practices of irrigation, when you don't have a truly 100% reliable source of water, if you own 10 acres up Highway 12, which is west of Trinidad, those people are not going to go invest thousands of dollars to set up an irrigation system. So that is somewhat an issue on these smaller places around on the Purgatory.
You know, it took us a little longer, but we got there. And so as we started doing some of the fun things like cleaning it up and getting people involved and helping, you know, stock fish and things like that, they realized that this is a really great asset that the community has. And so they got behind it. But it also makes sure that the river continues to be a viable delivery system for the water that they need for their agricultural products. One of the things that was the best thing about the Riverwalk is it introduced everybody to the river. You know, that they realized that, geez, we actually have a river there. And so it kind of became a community thing where people started to buy into it because, you know, every cool city in the state of Colorado has three things in common. One, they're in the mountains. Two, they were all mining towns. And the third thing is they all have rivers going through it. So if you take a look at Crested Butte or Durango or any place else, they saw the value in developing their river as a point of focus for the community, but also for a recreational opportunity.
That's one of the really special things that the Purgatory Watershed Partnership has been able to be a part of here. It's not only spearheading good science, but getting good on-the-ground work done and also encouraging and supporting these conversations.
The lower third of the river basin is marked by large ranches east of Trinidad and bordering Comanche National Grasslands. Generational ranchers raise cattle on dry land operations that rely largely on rainfall that grows a variety of native grasses. Far from the main stem of the Purgatory, these ranches are still vitally connected to an ecosystem that requires constant vigilance.
My name is Mack Louden. I'm a fourth generation rancher in Branson, Colorado. My granddad and my great-grandmother homesteaded on this place in 1902. So we've been here for quite a while. The thing about generational ranching that I have seen is that you learn from the past generation. It's one of those things that the longer you've been here, you understand what works and what doesn't work. And in the 30s, they tried farming this country, and that didn't work because we don't have enough rainfall for dry land farming. So a lot of this country was plowed up, and it took us, probably 50, 60 years to really get that plowed up land back into native production.
Restoring ranch and farmland to its natural state is a big job, one that requires partnering with agencies that bring expertise and resources. Native grasses are given a chance to rebound after noxious and invasive species are removed. Shelley Simmons with the Purgatory Watershed Weed Management Collaborative works with farmers and ranchers to promote practices that restore and support the natural biodiversity in the Purgatory River Basin.
So my name is Shelley Simmons, and I'm the coordinator for the Purgatory Watershed Weed Management Collaborative. The sustaining part of Los Animas County's economy and even the Purgatory River watershed economy is agriculture. And noxious weeds pose a huge threat to our agriculture. So at this site where we are today was so full of tamarisk you could barely crawl through it. So we're doing extensive revegetation with planting willow stakes and cottonwood poles. We're going to do some hand broadcast seeding with native plants and also some potted native grasses that we'll plant. And then after that, the landowner is responsible for 5 years of treating the noxious weeds and just maintaining the site. And I will come back every year and inspect and document with photos. And it's been a really popular program. One of my biggest goals with our weed collaborative is to try to get dollars, conservation dollars on the ground to private landowners who otherwise could not afford to do this stuff on their own. In an ag community, expendable income is typically very limited, and many ag producers would love to do this kind of work, but they simply, when this kind of work costs more per acre than what your land is worth, there's no real incentive for them to do it. So if we can come in and pay for a lot of those upfront costs of removal and spraying and re-veg, that really gives them a leg up.
Most water purveyors whether it's for agriculture, whether it's for domestic use, industrial use. We all agree that we share the river. In our own little basin, our economy is downstream. That's farming. It's the city of Trinidad. It's ranching. And it's also in the montane, which is recreation. And it's almost all the same dollars, the same customers, the same people. So we're very much tied together.
I think that's what a lot of generational ranchers doing is they're thinking, what can I do to help the next generation? Rather than, what can I do to make myself better, make it easier for me? Is that I think that's what my parents and my grandparents did, is that they sacrificed for the next generation. And I think that's one of the things that you see is that, yeah, I could sell this place and I could make a lot of money and retire, but what do my kids want to do? What do my grandkids want to do? And so you'll sacrifice for their well-being.
I've always said, we own it, let's own it. That's what I'm most proud of, that this community has come together and is working to preserve this watershed.